Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description. They say that if a person loses one of his senses, then another sense improves. Be it hearing, smell, sight, or touch. People consider such a person incapable of living a full life, so many begin, so to speak, to coddle him. Of course, there are still those who do not value such a person at all and consider it funny to humiliate him. After all, for them, he is an outcast. Not like everyone else. Previously, such people were called God's people. Now, disabled. But no one thought that they do not need pity, only support, faith, and understanding. Sometimes these inferior people would like to scream, bang their fist on the door frame, and loudly declare that they are able to do everything themselves. Some will perceive this protest as fleeting anger and continue to treat it the same way. And he withdraws into himself, again and again. Many despair, giving up on everything, but the strongest does not stop going towards his goal. He tries to prove to the whole world that he is not a boarder. Not an outborn. It was pouring rain. Its drops were knocking on the windows, the wind was howling, seeping through the small cracks. The weather seemed to be sad along with the red-haired little girl. She was sitting on the windowsill of her own window, trying not to pay attention to the cold air in the house. It was a small apartment in an old dormitory where a girl named Uzumaki Naruto lived, completely alone. She was an orphan, and the girl was completely blind. She had no friends, she did not communicate with anyone, except for some ANBU members and the Hokage himself, who looked after her. People did not like her because of the fox demon sealed in her, who destroyed Konoha 5 years ago and killed many people, including 2 special ones who gave life to the village and Naruto's own daughter. But they had no idea what kind of life they gave to their child. A couple of minutes later the rain began to subside, after which a small ray of sunshine broke through the thick and dark clouds and hit the girl's face. Feeling the warmth on her cheek, the girl jumped up abruptly and ran to the exit door. The bright sun suddenly appeared in the sky, dispelling the melancholy, and with its warm rays warmed the chilled and wet earth and the frozen souls of the people. The girl's heart beat joyfully inside. Awkwardly and a little hesitantly, the girl ran down the stairs. She ran completely barefoot in a bright green dress. On the penultimate step, she stumbled and fell, breaking her knee. A man in an ANB uniform immediately appeared next to her, who, without saying a word, decided to pick her up. But Naruto hit his hand with her palm and shouted, "I'll do it myself!" After which she stood up on her feet and hesitantly took the first step, after which she smiled again and rushed along the path she had studied for so long. A beautiful, small green meadow, surrounded by only trees and bushes. It was her only place, where she could feel like a normal child like everyone else, where there were no strange looks. The feeling when they look at you with some malice, just burn you with their looks. No one even guesses that she feels all these looks, she just sees them differently, not like everyone else. The grass was still wet from the recent rain. Naruto squatted down and began to run her small hands through the wet grass. They froze in one position for a second and slowly began to clench into fists. "Old man!" the red-haired girl cried joyfully. And she ran to the old man who was dressed in white. His name was Hiruzen Sarutobi. He knows where to look for her. This is her favorite place. Unfortunately, they see each other very rarely. After all, the position of Hokage obliges. He squatted down to make it easier for her to hug him. "How did you know it was me, Naruto?" the man asked, moving away from the girl. "I don't know, I just felt it," she answered thoughtfully. "Lately I've become more aware of the people around me." Interesting. If it continues like this, I think we can send you to the academy, if you want, of course. You can become a medic or... To the academy? You're not kidding? Is it possible? Naruto asked, not believing her ears. But everyone says that I don't belong there. I think you can handle it. But it's too early. First, I'll show you one technique that will be useful, said the Hokage and sat down on the grass, meditation. The girl sat down next to the old man and listened to him attentively, and then performed all the actions that he spoke about. It was getting dark outside. It was already late evening. Naruto was sitting at the table with the Hokage. They were drinking tea and chatting about something cheerful, but at some point the girl fell silent and asked the old man in a serious voice, "Why does everyone hate me so much? Do they call me a demon? I didn't do anything to them. You see, people often do this." "Often? But why?" "There is a lot of anger and hatred in them." "Hate towards me?" "To everyone, Naruto. You can't get rid of her." "Okay, it's late, I have to go." "Good luck, Naruto." The Hokage said goodbye to her and disappeared. "Why not get rid of it?" With this question, little Uzumaki fell asleep. 1 year later, October 10th. The morning light gradually flares up in the window. Residents always greeted this day with dampness, chilliness, and a dank wind. But this morning is quiet. Only the leaves are trembling on the tree outside the window. In the old dormitory on the outskirts of the village, on the second floor, the window suddenly opened, from where a red head looked out. It was Naruto. A light breeze played with her red long curls, which beautifully shimmered in the recently risen sun. The girl's face was so peaceful. Long and fluffy eyelashes trembled, and her small nose comically rose when she took in fresh air into her lungs. A few moments later, the girl frowned, which looked very, very cute, after which she opened her big, beautiful, unseeing eyes. And it seems that anyone who saw them would drown in them. A soft blue color, shimmering with silver. Not everyone who knows, having seen them, can say with certainty that they are blind. They were mesmerizing with their beauty. They say that the eyes are the mirror of the soul. A mirror? But this man, whose words are mentioned, was right. Looking into the eyes, you will see everything that is hidden far away, in the very depths, a secret place of your soul, where no one can reach. "Happy birthday, Naruto," said the young man in the A&B uniform. "Thank you, Ninja-san," Naruto said, smiling widely. The girl never addressed them any other way. "Ninja-san. What could be simpler? The weather outside is great today. Nature itself is smiling at you." "Yes, but it's strange, will today really be different, not like always," said the red-haired girl, remembering all the events that happened on this day. Every 10th of October was hard for little Naruto. After all, many people died on that day. Even though 6 years have passed, everyone still remembers that date. How can you forget when the bearer of all memories is nearby? Naruto never understood what she had to do with it. Walking down the street on that day, the girl did not see what was happening, but she felt this accumulated hatred that emanated from the people around her. On one of those days, Naruto learned what physical pain inflicted by someone else was. But besides that, there was also mental pain. Monster. Demon. Die. Why did they do this? I didn't do anything, the little girl thought, but who will explain it to her? A little girl who dreams of one thing, to grow up in a loving family, to have friends, and just to be an ordinary child, where there is no contempt, hatred, and eternal pity. Get ready, today we're going to visit the Hokage. Hokage? But it's still so early, Naruto was surprised. Now is the time for a gift. A gift? Again these looks, the girl thought, walking hand in hand with the young ANBU member. They headed to the Hokage's residence, passing many streets. When they reached the office, they stopped, after which Naruto said, "He's not alone, shall we wait?" "No need, we won't bother them." The ANBU opened the door, brought the girl in, and then disappeared. Naruto, Sarutobi got up from the table and headed towards the girl. "Old man, you haven't come to me for so long," the red-haired girl rejoiced. "I was busy, but that doesn't mean I forgot about you. Happy birthday, Naruto. I guess you want to get your present as soon as possible?" She nodded her head. "Well, from today you are entering the academy," the Hokage continued calmly. "Huh? To the academy? Are you kidding, old man?" "No, but we can wait a little, since you are only 6. Hooray! Hooray! I'm gonna become a ninja. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is the best gift." Naruto jumped with happiness. Are you sure you can handle it? Although I don't doubt you. It's not for nothing that I and everyone who looked after you were busy preparing you. And now you'll be taken to your first lesson. Behave well, Naruto." "Of course, old man. What are you talking about? I promise to be the best." "You need an assistant. On this note, Naruto and his companion left the office in the direction of the Ninja Academy. Are you sure you're not making a mistake, Hiruzen? Someone, who was in the office with the Hokage, spoke up. The council doesn't like this idea, and besides, the Jinchuriki is also blind. Yes. I'm sure. She has abilities. And what kind? Well, for starters, she knew that there was someone else in the office besides me. What makes you think that? He didn't let up. Danzo, I have been watching her for many years and I see how she is developing. Kagura Shingon's spiritual eye of God's joy, with the help of which she can search, study and pursue a person by his chakra within a radius of several kilometers, opening her spiritual eye. But for this she does not need to make seals. This happens to her unintentionally. Ninjutsu that the Uzumaki knew? And yet, soon it could be dangerous for the population, for all of us. What if the fox breaks out? I think she will become a good shinobi of the hidden village of the leaf. This is where the conversation between the founder of the root and the Hokage ended. Meanwhile at the academy. We've arrived. Naruto, are you ready? I won't be able to keep an eye on you here forever. It's not necessary, Ninja-san. Everything will be top-notch, said little Uzumaki, smiling broadly and stretching out her hand in front of her, showing her thumb. I hope you understand which one. Well, that's it, this is your office. I wish you good luck. Thank you, she shouted after the one leaving. So don't worry, Naruto. Everything will be fine. Hey, hi. Are you talking to yourself? Asked a plump boy who came up to him. He looked about 7 years old. No, I forgot, hi. I was just, Naruto said excitedly. New girl. I figured it out, I haven't seen you before. Okay, let's go, Iruka-sensei is already in class. Entering the classroom, Naruto took a few steps and stopped. It was still not so easy for her to navigate far from home. There was silence in the classroom, which also put pressure on Naruto. Introduce yourself, the teacher said and walked towards her. He had chestnut hair tied in a ponytail, a typical Chunin uniform and a distinctive scar on his nose. Uzumaki Naruto, after which everyone present began to whisper. Of course, who hasn't heard of Uzumaki Naruto, the demon girl? Uzumaki Naruto. I am Yumino Iruka, your teacher. Well, welcome, Naruto. 2 years later. Every day starts in the morning. For one person it is so desirable, for another it is the most hated, for a third it can end before it even starts. Each person has their own. They say, the way we start the morning is the way we will get the day. Probably, many are familiar with this. If the day did not go well in the morning, then it went like a car on an off-road. Here you should not be upset about an unsuccessful day, but just remember that each new morning is a time to start life anew. Each new day is a chance not to repeat the mistakes of the past. And an opportunity to change the future. I wonder how much time I have left until the academy? Naruto mumbled, having just woken up. About 3 minutes until the first lesson. The Hokage, who appeared next to him, said in a calm voice. And the old man is you. What? I won't make it. Little Uzumaki flew up from the bed screaming and rushed to wash herself. The road to the wash basin was not easy. On the way she came across uneaten boiled noodles in a box, which turned out to be on her right foot, which caused her to quickly fall onto a spoiled milk carton. The morning guest quietly laughed at what he saw, but then took on a serious expression, as if nothing had happened. Naruto, I am concerned about your attendance at the academy. I have begun to doubt your intentions to become my assistant in the future. You have begun to skip classes often or be late for the first few lessons, the Hokage answered in the same calm voice. But I didn't do it on purpose, old man. I spend all my time after school studying with Ninja-san. He says that you need to choose your own style in close combat. It's hard for me to do that yet, and I already know the theory. And anyway, this academy isn't like I thought, it's boring. Naruto, sitting on the floor and puffing discontentedly, made excuses, covered in sour milk and with noodles on her head. What about your words on the very first day of admission that you would make friends no matter what? You see, no one seems to notice me, and if they do show me attention, it's only with their name-calling and stupid jokes. No one wants to be friends with me, old man, the red-haired girl whispered, lowering her head. And you decided to give up? The man asked in surprise, but he still didn't receive an answer. Naruto, you shouldn't despair. No matter what happens, no matter how hard it is, remember you need to take a step and another step. If necessary, one more step. These steps will lead you to where your heart wanted to go. The main thing is, don't stop, take steps. Even when you don't see where to go, go anyway. Only you choose where to stop, so move until you find yourself where you want to stay. In life, we may fail at many things, but it's always worth trying. Where does my heart desire? You're right, old man, then I'll try until I succeed. After thinking for a bit, little Uzumaki answered, smiling from ear to ear. Well, if that's the case, then it's time to go to the academy. I think we'll make it in time for the second lesson, the old Hokage said with a good-natured smile, removing the noodles from his long and scarlet locks. Yes. Meanwhile at the academy. Who isn't in class today? Iruka asked the children. Uzumaki Naruto is gone again, sensei. The pink-haired girl answered. The same names again, the young man said thoughtfully, after which he left the office with a piece of paper in his hand. I don't understand at all how this tomato was accepted into the academy. The fair-haired girl was indignant. I agree, Not only does she constantly skip classes, but her parents themselves tell us to stay away from her. Sakura, I think they're right. Good students shouldn't hang out with losers and hooligans, am I right, Sasuke-kun? Is what the black-haired boy replied. So, let's begin, said the teacher who entered the classroom. But he was not allowed to finish speaking by a clumsy and red hurricane that flew into the classroom. Sorry for being late, sensei. Naruto? Please take your seat. Next time, please don't be late. Iruka's answer was a nod. After a long and boring lesson, in Naruto's opinion, the long-awaited break came. The boys left the classroom and went outside, but there were those who continued to stay there. A couple of girls squealed near Sasuke's desk and 2 more sat in the middle row. I think the old man was right. There's no point in stopping at what hasn't been achieved. After all, I won't get hit in the forehead for trying to make friends with someone. Uzumaki thought out loud, walking towards where the 2 were. Chips? The boy cried out sharply. Hi, the boy didn't let her finish, sharply bending down to pick up a fallen chip, hitting his forehead against the red-haired girl's forehead. Ow. Well, yeah, how could they not hit? Naruto muttered, sitting on the floor and rubbing the bruised area. Choji, how many times do I have to tell you? Don't pick it up off the floor. If you don't spare your stomach, then spare the people around you. Oh, how problematic it all is. Are you okay? Asked the second boy, helping Naruto to stand up. Sorry, I didn't notice you. The plump boy Choji replied. It's okay, everything's fine. I'm fine, the girl answered, adjusting her clothes. Naruto briefly looked straight ahead, where she felt a small center of chakra. It was Shikamaru, who was also carried away by looking. The rest of the break the kids joked and laughed, which surprised those around them. I wanted to ask you, maybe today after school we can all go for a walk together? Uzumaki, blushing to match her hair, babbled. I don't mind, and you, Choji? The dark-haired man answered. Same, but I need to go home and have a bite to eat first. Well then, we have an agreement. Everyone returned to the classroom, and the lessons continued. And the boy who had been talking to Naruto before, lay down on the desk and without paying much attention to those around him, looked at Uzumaki. Shikamaru was shocked by her unusually beautiful eyes. Soft blue, with a silver tint. They shimmered like precious stones. Before that, he hadn't paid attention to them, since they were always covered by a red fringe. Only her pink cheeks were visible, on which there were 3 symmetrical stripes. They resembled cat whiskers. Also plump little lips. And why does everyone avoid her? Little Nara asked himself quietly and inaudibly. Then he heard a short, but somehow thoughtful. Turning around, he noticed Sasuke, who was sitting not far from him, and he heard Shikamaru's question. The Uchiha glanced at him and then stared at Naruto, who seemed to be floating in the clouds rather than listening to the teacher. The lessons were over. The children went home in small groups, where their parents, brothers and sister were waiting for them. Little Uzumaki, who had left her class first, was swinging on the swing that was located near the academy. Shikamaru, Choji, I'm here. Naruto called the guys. Guys, you go ahead and I'll catch up with you later, Choji said. Wait, I have an idea. Naruto squeaked. We'll all go to Ichiraku Ramen together to have a bite to eat. Excellent. Forward to Ichiraku. The fat man supported. I don't think that's a good idea. The little heir of the Nara clan responded. Come on, Shikamaru. It'll be fun, and we'll have a snack at the same time, Uzumaki said, jumping off the swing. Of course, it's fun, he muttered, counting his pocket money. How problematic it all is. The kids really had fun at Ichiraku Ramen, but maybe not everyone. Naruto, this is the 5th portion. I understand that you are arguing, but this is a stupid idea to surpass Choji. Shikamaru, don't be a bore, the boys responded in unison. It all stopped at 7 servings of ramen. Drawls Shikamaru stated, watching the fight. Your bill. The owner of the establishment, Old Man Tucci, thrust a piece of paper at Shikamaru. Well, I warned you, Nara exhaled, after which he took out everything he had from his pockets. Naruto and Choji quickly did the same, but there was still not enough. Not enough. Stop. I'll be right there. Uzumaki shouted and ran off somewhere. A couple of minutes later, she was walking along with an ANBU. The boys, perplexed, blinked their eyes and tried to understand what was going on. Ninja-san, I need your help, the red-haired girl said with a serious expression. You need to see this, she continued, handing over a piece of paper with a bill. As soon as the young ANBU took it, the little Uzumaki, instantly grabbing her friends, ran as far as possible. 15 servings of pork ramen? Naruto, did you order all of this? Naruto? Naruto! The ninja shouted, realizing that he had been taken in like a little child. He had no choice but to pay. Ah, the guys laughed. They were lying on the soft grass at one of the training grounds. Choji! Choji! A woman screamed somewhere in the distance. It's Mom, I have to go. See you tomorrow at the academy, said goodbye to little Akimichi. See you tomorrow, Kazdi. The children said goodbye to him. And who was it, Naruto? Well, they're in Ichiraku, asked Shikamaru. And this, Ninja-san, he has been looking after me for a long time. Naruto began her short story with this. She told about her childhood spent alone, about how, for some unknown reason, everyone hated her. But she never mentioned how hard, offensive, and painful it was. She only claimed that soon she would become the Hokage's assistant, and all the villagers would recognize her. Now everything is different, I have friends. Friends? Shikamaru drawled. Yes. We're friends now, Naruto answered without any hesitation. Shikamaru smiled at her words and continued to look at the clouds. My first real friend. Uzumaki smiled at her thoughts. For a time, we may not notice the people around us or pretend not to notice. But there come moments of confrontation with a person who has always been there, and our worldview changes, and what's more, we ourselves change. We are changed by these people and their actions. First of all, they restructure the structure of our thoughts and feelings. I think it's time to finish the warm-up. Let's repeat the seals, said a young man in an A&B uniform. Phew. But Ninja-san, I remember them without that. The out-of-breath Uzumaki began to protest. And that's what we'll check now. Rat, bull, tiger, rabbit, horse. Stop. You've got the horse seal wrong. With these words the man approached Naruto and helped her arrange her fingers correctly. Then he told her to repeat it several times herself, saying the names out loud. Excellent, unless the horse seal let you down. Well, it happens to everyone, right, Ninja-san? The red-haired girl made a stupid smile. I agree. But don't forget that you are a future shinobi, and the slightest mistake in a real fight can lead to death. And it's not so scary if it's yours, as the fact that your comrade can die because of you, the ANBU member said with a hint of discontent and sadness. The girl took on a serious look and thought about what was said. I won't allow that, Ninja-san, Naruto said confidently. Well then, it's worth practicing throwing kunai and shuriken. They had their own plan of action for this. During her training, Naruto learned to hit targets. It was not easy since these targets did not contain chakra, which the young Jinchuriki relied on. The solution to the problem came unexpectedly. The young ANBU carved deep, medium-sized lines on a board, each of them indicating a certain, also carved, number. It looked like a dial. In this way, the girl learned to tell time on an ordinary watch, which did not have a protective glass. And she learned the most important thing, throwing a cold weapon. True, there were still some nuances. The young man had to be told the location of the target, much like now. Naruto, 2 o'clock, a quiet whistle, and the kunai found its target, good. 12 o'clock 9. Well, now let's try it on the move. All the girl's actions were dexterous and fast. The throwing continued until the kunai and shurikens ran out. I'm pleased. Just a little bit more and you'll be able to hit all the targets. And now you should aim at me. Oh, that's so easy. Naruto rejoiced. You're celebrating too early, I haven't finished. At the same time, you have to dodge my attacks. Uzumaki is stunned, because there has never been such training before. What? But how will I understand where the kunai is flying if Naruto was not destined to finish. Well, if you admit your defeat so easily, I think you should forget about your dream of becoming. The ANBU began in a bored voice, but was immediately interrupted. What do you mean? Prepare to take on the Uzumaki Naruto's great strike. The Jinchuriki shouted, kicking the young shinobi and raising her hand to strike, which contained a kunai. But there was no one there anymore. Too slow, a ninja appeared from nowhere and dealt a strong blow to the stomach. Naruto jumped back a short distance, clutching her stomach. Suddenly, a kunai flew past her face, leaving a small cut on her cheek. The girl froze in place. Her fingers slowly ran over the cut, leaving a smeared trace of scarlet blood. Pull yourself together, Naruto. She heard the stern voice of her enemy. So that's it, she said thoughtfully. She finally understood. The entire circulation of chakra was before her eyes, and she could see from it what direction her fingers were taking. Calculating the flight was not difficult. But traces of that very chakra remained on the weapon itself, which was very useful for the blind girl. A second later, she launched a kunai towards the speaker. But he didn't keep waiting long. Dodging the girl's kunai, the young ninja launched 3 shurikens at once, hoping that Uzumaki would block at least one. But to his great surprise, 3 blocked shurikens fell to the ground at once. And the girl took a defensive stance, holding her kunai in her right hand, which was at mouth level. The second, clenched in a fist, was at stomach level. Her legs were wide apart. The young ANBU was attracted by the expression on the red-haired girl's face, so serious and focused. Her whole appearance said that she was ready for battle and did not intend to give up. A couple of seconds later, as if sensing each other, they tore off from their places. For an 8-year-old, Naruto had good speed, but still not enough to deal any blow to an experienced shinobi. Understanding the complexity of the situation, she was in no hurry to despair. Their kunai met, making an unpleasant screeching sound. Uzumaki wanted to strike with her free hand, but at that very second she felt a sharp pain in her side, inflicted by the ANBU soldier's foot. The girl flew back a short distance, while also sliding along the ground. Hissing in pain, but getting to her feet, she moved forward with her last strength, throwing the remaining shurikens at the ninja. Realizing that it was useless, the red-haired girl pulled another kunai out of her pouch. Throwing it behind her back, it seemed that she had miscalculated her own serve and lost her weapon. But no such luck, Naruto caught it with her free hand, which was behind her back. With her fingers, she pushed the kunai so that it was located across her entire palm. Then she clenched her fist, from which now only an imperceptible tip stuck out. The raised hand with the visible kunai passed the man, but his attack immediately cut the girl's shoulder. Not yet feeling pain, the Jinchuriki raised her fist with the blade sticking out of it, and aimed it at her opponent's face. The blow hit the mask, after which the young shinobi jumped back into the distance. I think that's enough for today. It's late. You've already run out of strength, he said, putting the weapon back in his pouch. Then he went to the red-haired girl to examine the wounds. Hee, I almost got you. With a tired but wide smile, Uzumaki said, sitting on the grass. I wouldn't say so, he replied, examining a deeper cut on his shoulder, which, quietly hissing, slowly began to heal. Fox. After treating the cuts, the man and the girl headed towards the dorm. After seeing Naruto home and making sure she had gone to bed, the young Anbu headed towards the rock where the Hokage's faces were carved. There he sat down on the memorial and looked thoughtfully around the village. Then his hand reached for his mask. Taking off the mask, he glanced at it and was about to put it aside, when a deep scratch immediately caught his attention. What the? He stared at her in surprise. What a sly one. Realizing what was going on, the young shinobi laughed. That? Naruto! Uzumaki heard through her sleep. Just 5 more minutes, she muttered. Good morning, Naruto. Get ready, today at the academy you will have a knowledge check, that is, a test. Try to pass it with excellent marks, the young Anbu hastened to inform. I always said that mornings are never good, the girl grumbled, getting out of bed. Hurry up, with these words the man disappeared. And Naruto began to get ready. Going outside, the girl noted that it was quite cool and it had rained recently. Breathing in the fresh air deeply, she continued her way to the academy. Having reached the designated place, she entered the building where the entire stream of children of completely different ages was going. Feeling a familiar chakra, Uzumaki headed towards it, which led her to the classroom. Hello Choji, Shikamaru. She waved to her new friends. Oh look, a tomato showed up. Ino squeaked, but Naruto didn't pay any attention. Soon the lesson began, where Irika gave a written test on various topics of the material covered. Naruto took it orally, which not everyone in the class liked. Many in the village knew that Uzumaki Naruto was a demon carrier and blind. But only the kids from the senior classes understood the meaning of the word, disabled, the rest did not even think about its meaning. The children simply imitated their parents and senior students. But with each passing year, many got tired of seeing the constant honors towards Uzumaki. What's so special about her? The children wondered. To which the parents began to tell them about the girl's blindness, assuring them that she was not special, it was just that Kami-sama had deprived her of normal vision. From then on, it became more difficult for Naruto to try to establish contact with everyone. Now these were not simple harmless jokes, but a kind of contempt, clearly indicating her shortcoming and manifestations of his superiority over her. The end of the school day. The children ran off in all directions. Having said goodbye to her friends, Naruto stayed swinging on the swing, thinking about her own. Her mood had evaporated somewhere, and she suddenly felt lonely. A couple of minutes later it started to rain, which did not frighten the girl one bit. And the last students were leaving the academy. One of them was Sasuke. He stopped when he saw Uzumaki on the swing and, after thinking for a bit, headed in her direction. Having reached Naruto, Sasuke silently sat down right on the wet grass, leaning his back against a tree trunk. His gaze was directed somewhere into the distance. Naruto, on the other hand, perfectly felt the familiar chakra next to her. But she could not give an exact definition of whose it was, since she did not pay much attention to people who were simply there or passing by. It was important for her to remember the chakra of only those close to her. And she had no desire to find out now who this one belonged to. She continued swinging on the swing in silence. The rain stopped. But the clouds did not want to go away, and thickened more and more over Konoha. It is unknown how much time passed, and the guys were still silently next to each other. This silence did not bother any of them, it was somehow calm and cozy. But soon, the young Jinchuriki jumped off the swing and headed towards her house. Then Sasuke followed her example, who headed in a completely opposite direction. And some would consider this strange, but the guys knew the reason for their behavior. They silently listened to each other. And they left with the feeling that this was the best conversation. Pain can destroy a person. And this is not only about physical pain, because there is also moral pain. We may not understand ourselves or our own behavior until we experience the pain of our losses. It cripples a person from the inside, forcing him to face a certain cruel reality and accept it. In the life of every person there are moments when it seems like the world is collapsing for him. This is called despair. The soul at this hour is full of falling stars. The consequences? No one can even imagine what happens to a person during this period. It's just that a part of ourselves dies in each of us, and we can never become who we were before. In any case, we need to be understanding of ourselves and others so that all our changes are humane. The sky was rapidly darkening. The menacing darkness hanging over Konoha was slowly beginning to dissipate. The wind had risen. With its help, the starry sky was getting rid of the unfriendly clouds. Strong gusts, each time getting stronger, were ready to tear branches from the tops of the trees in their path. On a deserted street, in the middle of the road, a young guy was walking. He was walking slowly, as if he was completely exhausted. But someone's voice, still quite childish, made him stop. "Why? No! You couldn't! It wasn't my brother who did this!" The black-haired boy screamed, choking on tears. The older boy let out a nervous laugh. After which, he slowly turned around and looked at the one who was screaming. The boy involuntarily shuddered, seeing the Manjiko Sharingan, in whose gaze one could read coldness and indifference. "I am your older brother, just as you wanted me to be. Someday you will become my rival. Despise me, hate me. You always wanted to surpass me. That is why I left you alive. For my own sake. One day you too will have such eyes, but on one condition: you must kill your best friend, the one who is dear to you. Run! Run away! Cling to life! My stupid little brother." Then he turned away and closed his eyes. The moon, released from behind the curtain, illuminated everything around. The boy's expression was calm, as if it was not he who had just said such terrible words that literally pierced the boy's heart. But a barely noticeable track on his cheek from a single tear sparkled in the moonlight. A moment, and he suddenly opened his eyes, in which the pain that had not yet been completely suppressed sparkled. Turning to his younger brother, he said, "You have to survive, Sasuke, to kill me." Tsukiyomi. The morning was surprisingly very quiet. The village, shrouded in darkness, peacefully basked in the fog. In the old dormitory, from a small apartment, came the quiet sobs of a little girl who was tossing and turning on a narrow, wooden. Soon, covered in cold sweat, she finally fell off. Having assumed a sitting position, the girl weakly said, "It was just a dream," as if convincing herself of that. A drop of cold sweat rolled down her temple, smoothly sliding through the barriers of red wet hair stuck to her face. Her hands reached for her neck. Unpleasant sensations remained both in her throat and in her soul. A dark corridor, shabby walls, dim light coming from nowhere. The entire room was literally flooded. Silence, so oppressive and frightening. Little Uzumaki stood in the middle of that very corridor. Her legs were almost knee-deep in water. "Where am I?" She asked her question into the void, into an unknown place, from where hatred and something else reeked. Standing in place and thinking about further actions, the girl nevertheless decided to use shinobi tricks. Concentrating, Naruto used chakra in order to easily move through the water, which was not yet particularly good for the girl. At the same time, she suddenly felt a splash of that very water, and before that, her eyes, which had not seen anything, now observed a strange movement. "What is this? Chakra? Some strange?" she asked, perplexed, looking at the blue and orange streams. Walking, in the direction of the supposed driving chakra, Uzumaki came out into a huge hall where she saw many different directions and intersections beneath her. A fascinating sight. But there was also something besides this, something dark and scary. This made her feel uneasy. The blue-eyed girl's heart was ready to just jump out of her chest. Feeling some kind of danger behind her, the red-haired girl hesitantly began to turn around. A deafening roar, after which Naruto, unable to stand on her feet, fell into that very chakra water, which in depth could not be compared with that which was in the corridor. Trying to swim to the surface, the girl noticed that it was as if someone was pulling her to the bottom, if there was one. Her strength instantly left her. A couple of seconds later, starting to panic, she began to simply waste oxygen from her lungs. The chakra in which the girl was located was no longer visible. Everything around suddenly darkened. The cold penetrated to the bones, and moments of her lonely days, undeserved beatings, and unfair treatment of others flashed before her eyes. An unpleasant burning sensation arose in her chest, and a lump rose in her throat. Uzumaki squeezed her clothes in the chest area, and her face distorted with pain. The last bubble of air escaped from her small mouth and went up. Naruto, as if seeing this, raised her gaze after him. Unfortunately, the instinct of self-preservation, like that of any other living creature, took over the girl's mind, and she immediately took a breath, which contributed to the instant penetration of water into her lungs. Grabbing her throat with her hands, Uzumaki winced from the terrible sensations. Her throat burned, her lungs seemed to be torn apart and filled with lava. One breath followed by another. The girl squeezed her neck as much as she could, but it did not help. Her whole body felt like lead. A slight tingling was already felt in her arms and legs. Her heavy eyelids began to droop. Her hands weakened their grip. The girl no longer felt the cold, but her body was still trembling. And in her soul, only pain and resentment raged, which gave birth to hatred. And I will still become an assistant to the old Hokage, and maybe even take his place. And then everyone will recognize me, echoed in her head, to which the red-haired girl's eyes suddenly opened wide. Having made sure that she could still move her arms and legs, Uzumaki, without wasting a second, began to make new attempts to get to the surface. Only now she was calm and confident that she would succeed. She should succeed. And a few moments later, deep sigh, after which Naruto found herself lying on the floor. After washing and having breakfast, the girl got down to her clothes and headed to school. On the way, right next to the swing that was opposite the academy building, Naruto heard screams in the distance, where there were only trees and bushes. Stopping and turning her attention to the voices coming from the distance, she immediately recognized the chakra of her classmate Hinata, but the rest were unfamiliar to her. Making her way through the bushes, Naruto began to clearly hear some of the boy's words and the sobs of the little heiress of the Hyuga clan. "Louder, creature! I can't hear you!" said the boy, poking her nose into the ground like the last kitten. "Sorry, Emmy," she said uncertainly. The boy was clearly not satisfied with this answer, and he raised his hand for another blow, but was rudely stopped. The others stood with surprised faces and looked at their friend, who was now lying next to Hinata and writhing in pain. No one had time to understand what had happened. Uzumaki was standing behind them when they noticed her. "Oh, so this is the same crap that does not allow people to live in peace in the village," exclaimed one of those present. Naruto involuntarily shuddered. She easily missed a blow to the heart from the spoken words, which was clearly evident from her face, which twisted as if the kunai itself entered it, the heart. The next moment, the boy who had risen pounced on the red-haired girl with his fists. In taijutsu, he was quite good for his age, but Uzumaki, already skilled, dodged the blows. "Demon!" The attacker literally spat out, which pissed off the blue-eyed Jinchuriki, who at the same moment raised her leg to strike, to which the boy did not have time to react. But she did not even think about stopping, but only with great effort began to drive her offender into the ground. Without thinking for long, the watching boys ran to help their friend. She easily repelled the attack of one Uzumaki, but she simply did not have time to attack the second one from behind, purely physically. After all, she was only 8, and they looked about 12, and there were 3 attackers. Having missed the blow, the girl grabbed her bruised side, but still confidently stood in anticipation of a new attack. "Well, that's it, demon, we'll show you now," the boy who was picking himself up from the ground said, spitting out blood. He himself stood there swaying from side to side. The 2 who were nearby didn't wait for him and rushed at the blue-eyed girl. It turned out that they literally squeezed the girl from 2 sides, but she still coped well. Block. Punch in the jaw. Turn. Kick. She squatted and skillfully performed a sweep. Then a backflip. Dodge. A blow, but unfortunately it was not executed, since the third boy finally decided to intervene. With a quick movement, he intercepted the hand Naruto raised for a blow, and pulled it towards himself. Then he turned it so that the girl's elbow was looking down at him. Then he delivered a strong blow opposite the bend, with the palm of his free hand, which entailed an unpleasant sound of breaking bones. "Ah! Mmmmrar." The little Uzumaki held herself back with all her might, her legs giving way from the surging pain. But still, she stood on her legs, bent at the knees, holding the forearms of her broken arm with her healthy hand, and her head was lowered. Everyone stared at her, waiting for the moment the girl would fall. "And Naruto," whispered the crying and frightened Hyuga, who was watching the fight. The pain was wild, but, continuing to remain silent, the girl raised her head. Everyone was ready to see anything at that moment, but not a smile. Uzumaki stood, not paying any attention to the hot tears flowing. She smiled her sincere, pure and wide smile with all her teeth. It's okay, Hinata. You have nothing to be afraid of, she said calmly, which made the punks even angrier than before, and they rushed at her with their fists. Hinata-sama! Shouted from the academy a grown man who was actually supposed to look after the heiress of the great Hyuga clan. Let's run! One of the boys screamed and rushed to run from there. The rest followed him, kicking the demon carrier in the end. There you are, Hinata-sama. Let's go, said the one who appeared. But Naruto is there. She needs help, the blue-haired girl said quietly and uncertainly. Hinata-sama, you were told not to associate with this rabble. Let's go, he said more demandingly. But it's because of me, the same quiet voice after which only retreating steps could be heard. And Naruto remained lying on the ground, damp after the rains. Uzumaki woke up when the twilight was rapidly thickening over Konoha. Overcoming the pain and wild fatigue, the red-haired girl with tears in her eyes tried to get to her feet. Keisoo! She screamed, getting up from the ground. A few minutes later, Naruto got out of the dark thickets. Battered and pretty exhausted, a small bone was sticking out, and the blood still hadn't stopped oozing from the wound. Taking her forearm with her healthy hand, Uzumaki trudged towards the house. Along the way, everyone just turned around with nasty grins, saying, "Not enough, you got it, not enough! You need more!" No one even thought about taking the child to the hospital. First of all, for everyone, in the face of an 8-year-old girl, they saw the demon fox. And for those who had some semblance of sympathy and remorse, it was to their advantage that she was blind. The very thought that the girl would not see them, and therefore would not judge, allowed them to calmly pass by, even if they beat her. Naruto! What's wrong with you? A man in an ANB uniform appeared out of nowhere. Ninja-san, the last thing that escaped Uzumaki's lips, caught by the man. The sounds became not so quiet, uniting into an unbearable hum. It seemed to come from everywhere. Suddenly, the creaking of an opening door was heard. The sound of confident steps was heard more and more clearly. Soon they stopped right next to, on which the little girl was lying, after which there was silence. A couple of minutes later, the door again made a quiet creak, and then, "Hokage-sama, it's time!" The older man turned his gaze to the speaker and then back to the girl, and a deep, tired sigh came from his thin, wrinkled lips. He nodded slightly and headed for the door. A click and silence. It's her again. So enveloping, so secluded from all the other fuss. Dark red eyelashes trembled slightly, releasing a sleepy tear. Pink lips parted in a morning yawn. Having driven away the uninvited thoughts that were clouding her head, the red-haired girl noticed that the room she was in smelled musty, mixed with a slightly sharp and sour smell of medical preparations. And only then did the strong, already familiar smell of tobacco reach her, which gradually evaporated. The girl hurried to get out of bed, feeling around in search of her clothes. Once outside, the blue-eyed girl hurried home. She didn't run away, she just decided to leave, as she felt much better. No one was going to stop her or hinder her in any way. What did they care about the Jinchuriki? "It's been a tough day today," said the elderly man, lifting his smoking pipe to his mouth. "You are right, Hokage-sama," the young ANB replied. "I didn't think it would turn out like this." The old man stood up from his desk and headed to the window. His gaze fell on the hospital. Remembering his morning visit, he said, before the burial ceremony of the Uchiha clan, "I visited Naruto too." "Naruto. How is she?" the young shinobi asked without any emotion. The Hokage smiled, biting his pipe. "Don't worry, she's fine now." The young ninja exhaled barely audibly, and the old man took on a serious look, which made his subordinate wary. "I understand," he was interrupted. "Yes. That day. You weren't removed just because you needed help, although that's true, but the council had been raising this issue even before the Uchiha incident. I was just stalling for time." "I see," the young ANBU answered, still without emotion. "Now it's worth keeping an eye on Sasuke, but to tell the truth, you won't get that job either." "Let's go," the Hokage said and went to the exit. The guys stared at the head of the village with incomprehension, but obediently followed him. They went out onto the roof of the residence. "Do you remember once, in this place, I asked you to stay in my service in the ANBU squad? A lot of time has passed since then, But now I think that he is very angry with me." At this the old man smiled sadly, looking at the dark sky, where small grains of constellations had already begun to sparkle. "It's time for you to rest, Kakashi. Who, if not me, should know and understand what kind of? It's my fault that I couldn't help you, as your sensei wanted to do. Please forgive me." Hokage-sama flew from the young lips. The elderly man looked at his interlocutor and extended his hand, in which a few seconds later was a mask. A mask that seemed to have become one with the young fighter. It had eaten into his skin, merged into one, and nothing could separate them. But it only seemed that way. He could not even think that she would leave him so easily. Deep autumn continued to advance, leading the restless and harsh winter by the hand. The trees were bare of their branches, creating a warm and bright blanket, enveloping the cold earth. The villagers were collecting the remains of ripened harvests from their lands. Children were enjoying the last warm and colorful days. Despite everything, life in the village was seething. "What are you doing?" A boy's scream was heard from the backyard of the academy. "Have you completely lost your mind?" "Don't interfere, Shikamaru. I need to get rid of this shell immediately." The girl shouted back, slamming her hand on the bench on which the indignant man was lying. "As for me, Shikamaru is right. Your idea is stupid." The second boy, who was at the end of the bench, eating his lunch, spoke up. "You too, Choji," she said in frustration. "Grr, this cocoon is in my way, Databeo." She began to beat her hand with even greater force. "Naruto, it's only been a week and a half since you've been wearing a cast, and that's not enough. You need to give the bones time to heal. And then go to the hospital, they'll take it off for you themselves." Nara answered, continuing to lie around. "My hand is fine now, but this one," stretching her hand up to show everyone, "is just getting in my way." He continued hitting, causing her friend's head to jump and hit. Having directed all her strength to getting rid of the unnecessary, Uzumaki raised her hand for a new, crushing blow. "Kaya!" she shouted, after which a crack and a ringing sound were heard, drowning out the sound of falling bodies. "Finally! Got rid of it!" She sighed with relief. The white solid substance that had previously bound her hand fell to the ground. "Who would doubt you, Uzumaki?" Shikamaru responded discontentedly, lying on the ground with his butt up, on which Choji was sitting. Understanding the reason for her friend's dissatisfaction, she decided to assure him that everything was fine and the hand was indeed healthy. When she came across a suspicious pose from the guy's chakra. Boys, the bell has already rung, we need to hurry," she said with the most serious face. "Catch up." It was already heard from around the corner of the academy. Well, well," the boys cursed, getting up, but with every movement of Nara, his plump friend fell even more. Entering the classroom and apologizing, the boys took their seats. They looked rather shabby, but Uzumaki didn't care. Her whole appearance spoke for itself. She was more than deeply imbued with their sensei's story about the correct use of throwing weapons. After a long story, the teacher led his students to the school playground where there were wooden targets. Each one went out one by one and tried to hit the center. True, not many were able to cope with this. It was immediately obvious who was from an ordinary family, and who had shinobi parents. Naruto's turn came. Ignoring her classmates' stupid jokes, she went out and received 5 shurikens. "Try to hit the target, Naruto," Irika said. "Yes, I know." She frowned. Does even the teacher see her as a worthless weakling who will never succeed? And here is the first thoughtless throw that did not reach its target. Everyone laughed at her, joked, to which she only drew her eyebrows together even more. "I think that was a bad idea," the teacher said disappointedly, putting his hand on the girl's shoulder. "What?" "Yes, the red-haired girl hissed in anger. She could hit the target, only slightly under different conditions, but nevertheless she still had 4 more attempts. "Sasuke, come out and show the class one last time how to throw properly to hit the target," Yumino said, taking the weapon from the young Jinchuriki. The laughter began to grow, and the girls' admiring voices were also heard. "Sasuke-kun," deep sighs, squeaky voices of affection. A black-haired boy walked past Uzumaki, leaving behind a trail of the Swedish, sour smell of those same hospital medications. "Now move away, I haven't finished," I shouted after him. You've already shown yourself, Uchiha said without any mockery or emotion. The boys' laughter deafened my ears. How humiliating. Just look at her, she really is a tomato, the pink-haired girl shouted, pointing her finger at the blushing blue-eyed girl. A new wave of laughter, followed by her taking on a serious expression. Shikamaru frowned, looking at his friend. How is she feeling now, when everyone is laughing at her? Slowly her thin hands reached for her scarlet hair, braiding it into a low ponytail, a small fringe bursting out and falling over her eyes. Suddenly she abruptly tore herself away. No one understood anything until they saw her near the brunette, who wanted to pick up the shuriken lying on the ground. Intercepting the weapon, the girl calmly said, I told you I haven't finished. Everyone fell silent in surprise. Not everyone present noticed the red-haired girl's movements, and her behavior was something new for them. Now that's enough, stop behaving like that, Uzumaki, Iruka responded displeasedly. Silly, Sasuke said with a smirk, turning around. Don't underestimate me, upstart, she said just as calmly. The black-haired man turned around. The girl's soft blue eyes looked at him sternly. This was the first time he had a chance to look at them up close. They shimmered from silver to blue, which made him think that such eyes should not exist. Too strange, unusual. Too beautiful. Without saying anything, he moved towards the crowd and immediately a whistle was heard cutting through the air. A sharp dodge and the shuriken was caught by the sensei, who could not utter a word from the indignation, rage and surprise that overwhelmed him. The brunette immediately found himself next to Naruto. What do you think you're doing? Then he grabbed her by the shoulder, squeezing it painfully. Uzumaki herself was a little confused. Everything happened too quickly, but just as quickly she assumed an imperturbable look, while Sasuke, on the contrary, was very angry. Let her go, Uchiha. Shikamaru, who was behind the blue-eyed girl, responded lazily. Casting a cold glance at Naru, he noticed what his expression was like. This guy, who had previously been inactive, was now determined to get into a fight, even if it was not of his own free will. There was determination in his eyes. Well, that's enough for me. Get everyone to class quickly, said Iruka, grabbing Naruto by the scruff of the neck and dragging her along with him. It's not fair. The Jinchuriki howled at the top of her voice. The others began to laugh at her, the girls gloated and only the two continued to glare at each other. Having decided to end this senseless duel, Shikamaru relaxed and looked up at the sky, scratching the back of his head with his hand, then followed the others, leaving the Uchiha alone with his thoughts. Part 7 Perhaps this will pass with time. At first, there will be an unpleasant ache in the chest, and then, gradually, not immediately, but it will recede into the background. There are moments when a person who has managed to become something more than just a person for you, leaves you. And only after, you understand how important he was. Important only by his presence in your life. But he did not say goodbye to leave, but simply evaporated, disappeared from it, leaving you alone. People often do this, but for what purpose? Maybe to return soon or give way to someone more significant. To someone who is still only on the way, who has not even reached the threshold of your soul. After all, everything in life is proportional. A foggy summer morning. The first rays of the sun have already appeared above the horizon. The fog gradually dissipates, settling as dew on the fresh green grass. The streets were empty, only a few were already hurrying, moving quickly enough somewhere. The village was awakening. In the old house, from a small room, came the creaking of wooden, almost rotten floorboards. The sound of boiling water bubbling in an old teapot and the rustling of soft fabric. The red-haired girl was already fully awake, slowly weaving her legs around the room getting ready for the academy. Having dressed and had a snack, she headed towards the exit, as always, without locking the door. Yo, Choji, Shikamaru, the blue-eyed girl greeted. Hello, Naruto. You're not late today. Akimichi responded smilingly. It's even strange, Nara said, yawning. Pfft. It's all Iruka-sensei. If it weren't for him and his punishments, Uzumaki said, pouting and folding her arms across her chest. I see, Shikamaru answered. Afterwards, the boys just smiled silently, listening to the red-haired girl's dissatisfied statements about their sensei and how hard she had to pay for her pampering. With each new story, Uzumaki was increasingly overwhelmed with emotions and she began to gesticulate furiously, concentrating her attention only on the story and its listeners. The boys were amused by such behavior of their friend, but the excessive loudness and activity quickly tired the lovers of peace and quiet. "And where is the justice, Dadabi?" she shouted, spreading her arms, and then a clap was heard. "Ouch," the boys heard. "Oh. Sorry, did I hurt you too much?" The young Jinchuriki immediately caught herself. "And nothing to worry about, Naruto-chan, and sorry," the blue-haired girl said uncertainly, holding her nose and hurried to her seat. "Chan?" the blue-eyed girl repeated, surprised. "If Sakura or Ino were in Hinata's place now, she wouldn't get away with just Chan," laughed Choji. "She's very kind and friendly." Uzumaki didn't answer. Very soon everyone took their seats, and the teacher appeared in the office and began the lesson. Over time, Naruto, studying was not as easy as it was at the beginning of her training. There were no additional classes with her. Naturally, she could not read anything herself. Therefore, she relied only on the knowledge received from the ninja-san. And she also tried to remember as much information as possible from the lesson. But it was not as easy as it might seem at first glance. She began to impose too much on herself and demand too much from herself, and she clearly did not want to rely on anyone else and resort to his help. Since we have everything today, it's high time to hold a traditional sparring match that has been held for generations. After which Yumino led his students to the field. So, as you can see, there is a line here that is strictly forbidden to cross. Anyone who goes beyond it during a fight is considered a loser. Also, before starting a fight, you must fold your fingers into a certain symbol, which is half of the seal used for ninjutsu. Of course, I understand that this is just a formality, but the great Kage established this order. My business and the common business of the academy is to teach you the basics. Let's try. Let's start with Naro Shikamaru and Akimichi Choji. Leaving the red-haired girl alone, sitting cross-legged, away from the rest of the boys, they went out and sat opposite each other in the middle of the circle. The boys looked quite serious, but none of them dared to start a fight. After a short silence, Shikamaru exhaled. "Sensei, I give up," Nara said, and immediately the guy's discontent was heard. "But," he wanted to object. "Move on to the next pair," Shikamaru said with the same calm. "Good. Put your hands together in the harmony symbol, that is, the original fight symbol, interlock your fingers. This confirms that you are still comrades." The sparring continued. The trio was still on the sidelines, observing the fights. "Who do you think they'll put you with, Naruto?" Shikamaru asked. "I have no idea," she replied, shrugging her shoulders. "But I definitely won't lose." Shikamaru, looking at Uzumaki, thought that she was too confident in victory. This is of course good, but it is worth noting that she is the youngest and smallest of all here, and besides, it is not surprising if no one has trained her, unlike the other guys. Except perhaps herself. "Uzumaki Naruto." "Uzumaki!" the teacher called. "Me," Shikamaru said the Jinchuriki, rising to her feet. "Huh! What is the area of the drawn circle?" Nara stared at the blue-eyed girl, not understanding. "Well, how can I put it simply? If we measure it in steps, then how many?" she felt uncomfortable asking. Seeing this, the boy did not let her finish. "About 10 steps from the central point, the one where sensei will be during the greeting," Nara answered, still looking at the girl with confusion. "I understand." She nodded and rushed to the teacher. "So, Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto," Yumino repeated. "What? Is it right for a boy to fight a girl, no matter how strong she is?" muttered the boy with a small puppy on his head. "That's definitely not right." A boy standing nearby supported him, whose face was impossible to see because of his high collar and glasses. "Do you think that in the future you will be given a choice between enemies? And if a girl falls for a guy or vice versa, will you refuse to fight, giving the enemy the opportunity to defeat you and your comrades? And all because he is a girl?" The guys fell silent at this. A clear grin appeared on Naruto's face. She was ready for this, and it was not the first time she fought a boy. Most likely, she would be confused if her opponent was a girl now. And in this case, you cannot limit yourself in the strength of the blows delivered. And yet, remembering last year, or rather the speed of reaction to a thrown shuriken, Uchiha is well trained. Sensei, it would be better if you paired me with someone else, for her own good. I'm not going to give in and only hit her with half my strength, sparing her. Sasuke finally spoke up. Do you care what might happen to me? Naruto said. Does it matter? He repeated the question mentally, thinking it over. You're right, it makes no difference to me at all. Yes, Sasuke-kun. Show her. The girls squealed excitedly. So, since everyone has finally calmed down, you can begin. Iruka said, walking away from the guys. Had he done the right thing by listening to the Hokage about not infringing on Naruto in any way, underestimating her? Had he gone too far by choosing Uchiha Sasuke for this sparring? Synchronously folding their fingers into the symbol of fight, they instantly rushed at each other. While everyone was talking, Uzumaki had more than enough time to calculate where the edges of the circle were located and what further actions to take so as not to cross it. The first punch was delivered by Sasuke, from which Naruto easily dodged to the right side, but in a matter of seconds he made a 180-degree turn, raising his right leg to strike. So fast, the red-haired girl thought, taking the blow on her hands placed in front of her. Block? Uchiha was surprised, and then he felt how small hands grabbed his leg, sharply pushing the black-haired man away from herself, but not letting go of his legs, but only changing the positions of her hands. She pulled him back towards herself. The boy's second leg, which served as a support in this attack, gave way, unable to hold its owner. Continuing to hold on with only one left hand, the girl slightly squatted down after the falling Sasuke and, without losing a second, delivered a strong blow with her free hand to the solar plexus. Everyone watching the fight was silent, which made the dull sound of a falling body sound quite loud and clear. Uzumaki, deciding to take a fighting stance rather than take advantage of Uchiha's position, hurried to move away from him, calculating for herself that she was 6 steps from the line. Not bad at all for a girl. Sasuke said, rising to his feet. You're way too self-confident to think you're my equal. And you are too narcissistic, as I see it, Uzumaki answered in the same tone as Uchiha. The black-haired man didn't wait for anything, but again rushed into the attack, delivering blow after blow, which Naruto only parried. Speed. He has excellent speed, which does not allow him to deliver a counterattack, but only forces him to dodge and block in every possible way. Again, only the arms were used. Deciding to take advantage of the chance, the blue-eyed girl sat down in a half-split. She directed her extended leg to sharply kick his legs, but he, not wanting to lose his support anymore, jumped from the footrest aimed at him. Sasuke immediately struck back, raising his leg. The blow fell mostly on the arms protecting the head, but this did not help to completely deflect it. The blow was strong enough to contribute to a powerful fall and even allowed him to slide on the gravel, tearing his entire right side. "Exo," said the Jinchuriki, clutching her head, which was spinning quite a bit, preventing her from getting to her feet normally. "I think we can end here, Sensei," Uchiha said coldly, still watching Uzumaki. "I think you're right," he began. "No, I'm not giving up. I can still fight," the girl shouted, getting to her feet, her head still spinning and not allowing her to stand still. In order not to fall, she put her left foot to the side, so that now her legs were wide apart, keeping the balance of her whole body. "Uchiha Sasuke has won. Now you must form the symbol of harmony, and you can," Iruka continued. "Hey! I can still fight. This isn't fair. How come I'm considered a loser?" Naruto was furious. "You just crossed the line," the black-haired man explained calmly, watching as misunderstanding, disappointment, and anger were reflected on the red-haired woman's face. XOXOXO. "It's your fault, you blockhead. What a bastard, you deliberately pushed me into this. You like to play dirty, huh?" She literally flared up. "Well, here it begins," Shikamaru said lazily, covering his eyes with his hand. "Ow!" the girl howled, rubbing the back of her head, bruised by Sensei. "My head, Dadabi. I told you that this duel is a sacred tradition." He could not stand it. Iruka approached the calmly standing Uchiha, holding Uzumaki by the scruff of the neck, which he literally dragged along with him. And now the symbol of harmony, the teacher ordered, letting her go. Coming closer to each other, Naruto and Sasuke had already extended their hands to create a symbol, when they suddenly grabbed each other by the chest. "Do you want to fight for real, loser?" the boy literally growled, looking into her blue eyes. "I'm going to hit you now." "Idiot," the girl said in the same tone as Uchiha. "Stop it." The teacher hurried to separate the two. "Hey, idiot, apologize to Sasuke-kun," the pink-haired girl screamed. They chuckled in unison and finally dispersed silently. The lessons were over, the children said goodbye to each other and ran off to their homes. But some of the kids were in no hurry to leave the academy, huddling in groups, discussing the events of the day. A red-haired girl was sitting on a swing, rocking slightly on it. Next to her was a dark-haired boy, leaning his back against a tree. "So you still need help?" "Huh? What are you talking about?" The girl looked at her friend with confusion. "I wonder what it's like when you don't even know what the sky looks like. How do you manage to navigate the terrain, and at the same time behave like," he hesitated, "an ordinary, normal person?" She continued his words, to which the boy frowned. "Yes, I don't see everything around me, either nature nor its colors. I don't even have a clue what I am. Maybe that's why everyone avoids me and calls me names, because I look like my nickname. But I don't care about it as much as before." "I see," the listener said with some sadness. "It's not as bad as it seems." She looked at him. "Even now I can feel how upset your face has become. Just don't you dare feel sorry for me. In fact, I do see, just not the way you do. I see those three guys," the red-haired girl said, pointing towards the academy where the children were still. "It seems like Sakura and Ino are over there." She continued to move her fingers. "But how?" he asked in surprise. "I don't see people's bodies, but the entire chakra circulation system. At first glance, it's the same for everyone, but that's not entirely true. It also gives me some advantage. But there are also many nuances, like today's. When Ninja-san worked with me, he tried to identify the advantages of my capabilities and train me on the disadvantages. That's why sometimes I still need help." "So that's it," said the boy, thinking about what was said. "Hey, Shikamaru." The girl stopped swaying. "Yes, Naruto? What is the sky like? What does it look like?" she asked with some melancholy. The boy looked at his friend, and then turned his gaze to the sky. The silence lasted for several minutes. The dark-haired man was in no hurry to answer, because how can you explain something to a person who has nothing to compare it to? And it is simply impossible to compare the sky with anything. Unless... "It looks like your eyes," Nara said out loud, unexpectedly for himself. Realizing what had just happened, he carefully looked at Naruto, who was blushing deeply, and at that very moment, a small stone flew at his forehead. "Ouch!" He rubbed the bruised spot. "Baka!" Her gaze was so serious and stern that Shikamaru fidgeted, but after a couple of seconds she suddenly laughed while swinging on the swing. The boy sighed with relief and smiled. At the exit of the academy, a black head appeared, and the girls chatting nearby squealed and ran towards its owner. "Sasuke-kun, maybe we should go somewhere, since classes are over?" the pink-haired girl squeaked. "He won't go anywhere with you, big-headed one." The blonde girl slapped her on the head. "Sasuke-kun, maybe we'll go to a cafe, I know the best one." "Shut up, Inopork!" she yelled, pushing her rival away. The black-haired man didn't pay any attention to them, and continued on his way. But the ringing and clear laughter he heard made him stop. The interest was very great, to which he turned around in search of its source. Seeing the red-haired woman swinging on an old useless swing and laughing loudly in the company of her lazy friend made him involuntarily shrug his shoulder. He chuckled softly and continued walking. "Sasuke-kun is mine." "No, mine." The girls continued to argue, but the following made them shut up. "You're annoying." The last thing that was said by Uchiha as he left the academy. Commentary on Part 7. My apologies. Lots of mistakes and a problem with commas. Part 8 We are used to thinking that only the best bright future awaits us in the future. In fact, tomorrow is not just the next day on the calendar, but hope. Hope that tomorrow we will stop deceiving ourselves, saying that everything is fine with us. With the negativity that reigns around us, every day there is less and less room for everything positive and beautiful. Let go! The girl's hoarse voice can be heard. Just look at her. You are in no position to tell me what to do, demon, said the guy, holding her by the throat and squeezing her thin neck tighter. The girl grabbed his hand with hers in the hope of loosening his grip. And what are we going to do with her? Another boy on the right side spoke up. What do you mean, what? We'll make her answer for the death of our fathers. The offender answered irritably. I don't like all this. The girl's voice was heard. Naruto, weren't you the one who wanted your beloved uncle's killer to be punished? Yes, she said somewhat resignedly. At that very second, the girl was released and she literally fell to the ground, greedily inhaling the oxygen she so desperately needed. But before she could take a deep breath, she was immediately struck in the stomach, forcing her to empty her lungs and bend over while kneeling. Blow after blow, not even giving the opportunity to get up. Pain. She felt her ribs cracking, and what's more, she literally heard it. The sounds of dull blows were heard and carried more clearly than the words of the attackers. The girl's brain perceives only flashes of pain. Unable to endure in silence any longer, painful groans were heard from the parted pink lips. Who said that you can get used to pain? No matter how hard you try, no matter what anyone says, it's simply impossible. You can only learn to tolerate it. Learn to live with it, but not get used to it. Take that, creature. Another kick. And then it all stopped. The exhausted girl was sat down as if she was not a person at all, but just a simple broken doll. Someone else's hand lifted her head by the chin, running a thumb along her cheekbone and squeezed her face tighter. Naruto. What are you standing there for? Come here. Can't you see that she's incapable of anything? Show her what it's like to live in pain. Uncertain steps were heard. A slight breeze blew, drowning out all other noise. Strands of scarlet hair fluttered, then fell on the girl's tanned face. Will this never end? Will her beloved village never acknowledge her as Naruto Uzumaki? She thought. And everyone just kept spitting poison at her, which burned a hole in her chest like acid. Why are you hesitating? The guy asked with the same irritation. And then the stranger's hand lets go of the red-haired head, but before she could even bend down, the girl was hit in the face. A weaker blow than the previous ones, but no less painful. Having fallen with her nose buried in the ground, she tried only to take more air into her lungs. Let's get out of here, there's nothing else to do here. All these 2 years, the girl, every now and then, received only for merits unknown to her. After all, there is no supervision over her, and the Hokage is not visible nearby. Obviously there is no need to fear punishment. And now, leaning against the shabby wall of the old house, the red-haired woman rose to her feet. A feeling of resentment burned in her chest. Her sides were tightly squeezed with pain, cracks, and maybe even broken ribs that did not allow her to breathe deeply. Aching pain in her arms and legs, from the tension and injuries inflicted. Her head seemed to be splitting into many fragments. Hurtful words echoed in it over and over again. And from the corner of her lip, swollen from the blow, warm and salty-tasting blood slowly flowed, which was immediately smeared by the back of her hand. Having found the strength to walk despite the pain, she headed towards home. The main street was quite busy. People walked along the road as if they didn't notice the red-haired girl, pushing and shoving her in every possible way. Having reached the designated place, the girl began to pull off her dirty clothes, sending them to the basket. Having washed herself, she took the bandages from the drawer, which were there for such cases. Having taken a more comfortable position, she raised her arms as much as she could, gritting her teeth from the pain. And she began to wrap herself, starting under the girlish breasts that were forming. All by herself, rather than once again visit the white walls of the hospital wards. Having bandaged herself tightly, thereby limiting the extra mobility of the ribs, the girl began to dress. Having tied a dark cloth on her forehead, she went to the academy, which she had been late for a long time. Today was an important day, and another incident of this kind should not affect her and her goals. No, not today. Hello, Naruto! The chubby friend shouted from his seat in the classroom. Hello, guys, Uzumaki said calmly and quietly, with a smile on her face, as she sat her down. She seems to be worried about the exam, Akimichi muttered. Nara, who was sitting nearby, began to look at his late friend. I was hoping you would come, Naruto. You've already missed 2 tests, one of which was the transformation technique, said the teacher who appeared in the classroom. Sensei, you know that this is a waste of time. I won't be able to perform this technique, the Jinchuriki answered quietly. That's true, he said, scratching the back of his head, but it was still worth being present. Now in the specially designated room number 6, they will call everyone in turn, after which I will report the final results at the end of the exam you have passed. Yamanaka Ino, follow me. Good luck to the rest. And he disappeared with the blonde girl. Time passed and the number of children who passed the exam increased. Uzumaki, you're next, the black-haired boy announced without any emotion. She somehow awkwardly got up from her seat and headed towards the door. Finally, she will pass this exam and become a genin, a full-fledged shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village. This is her time. One step closer to her dream. No! To the goal. Uzumaki Naruto, this is my assistant for today, Mizuki-sensei. Let's get started. Yumino spoke. The exam was not difficult at all. A couple of questions to which the girl found answers were not difficult. One mission was set as an example, to which she had to find a solution and justify her actions just as quickly and accurately. And the final part was performing simple captures. And lastly, the illusion clone technique. Iruka said. Iruka-sensei, isn't that all yet? Naruto asked, breathing heavily from the injury she received. She was quite nervous, because she couldn't do this technique either. It was probably because the illusionary clone was the simplest of genjutsu, which the red-haired girl had no ability to do. Considering that she was the only one in her stream who couldn't perform this technique. Having decided to try anyway, she created a seal, not so much in the hope that it might work, but rather because of her stubborn character. Bunshin no Jutsu. A barely noticeable cloud appeared near the girl, vaguely resembling a human figure. Sorry, Naruto, you were the last one. Go and take your place in the class. The teacher responded resignedly. Maybe it's worth doing one more time, she said, making the seal again. Naruto, the teacher tried to reach Uzumaki, who was still trying to perform the technique she hated, but was still unable to do it. Uzumaki, go to class, Yumino said sternly, to which she only nodded and left the room. Iruka, the girl tried. Besides, she has good results for the guys studying at the academy. It even seemed to me that she already had her own style. True, it is not quite polished. I would even say that the girl is quite capable, said the one sitting next to him and watching his partner mark something on a piece of paper. He just nodded silently. A couple of minutes later, everyone in the class began to be seated in their places to announce the results. You are all great and each of you deserves encouragement for your efforts. Iruka began his speech, and then began to read out the names of those who passed the exam. So, tomorrow at the same time. All of the above, please come here to receive the protector, signifying that you are now full-fledged genin of the Hidden Leaf. Sensei, what about me? Really? XO. The blue-eyed girl said in her heart, not believing her failure. Look, the future assistant to the Hokage failed the simplest exam for genin. Laughter was heard from all sides. Keikibakuin, the blue-haired girl said quietly and looked at Naruto with pity. It wasn't an easy exam at all. It's not surprising that there are people who failed it, said another boy. Shino, it was only for weaklings that it was difficult. But for me it was like 2 fingers on the asphalt. The boy with a small dog on his head did not calm down. Naruto, not paying any attention to the exclamations of her classmates, stood up and headed towards the exit. Stopping at the very door, the girl turned around to look at her friends. Shikamaru, Choji, congratulations, the Jinchuriki said with a smile. Naruto, Nara wanted to say something, but was interrupted. See you? The girl waved her hand and disappeared behind the door. The teacher looked after the red-haired girl with regret. Maybe he was somehow strict with her, but the rules are the same for everyone. Taking into account her peculiarity, Naruto is quite accommodating in many ways, which happened for the first time in the entire existence of the Shinobi Academy. And if you consider that she is the bearer of unbridled enormous power, the Demon Fox. For this, it is generally worth bowing to the current third Hokage, who personally allowed her to study the art of ninja, or condemn her for rather reckless actions. Leaving the academy, the red-haired girl was heading towards home when she felt a familiar chakra following her. "Hey, what are you doing here? They haven't finished there yet," she asked in surprise. "I don't have to answer your questions," the black-haired boy said coldly. "Yes, it really does." Uzumaki snorted in response and demonstratively turned away. Kicking a pebble that had gotten under her foot and putting her hands in her pants pockets, the girl hurried away. Sasuke stood in the same place, apparently thinking about something. When the red-haired girl left the academy, he seemed to have finally decided something for himself and followed her. "Hey, why the hell are you following me?" The girl stopped and asked the boy following her with displeasure. He only chuckled softly, but did not stop. "I'm talking to you, Uchiha." Silence in response. "Don't you dare ignore me, you idiot!" The black-haired man remained silent, pretending not to notice her at all. "Well, okay. Chase me as much as you want, I don't care. Do you hear me? I don't care." The young Jinchuriki didn't let up. So why did he decide to follow her? Not knowing the exact answer himself, he looked at her carefully. Still short and skinny. Fiery red hair, with which a light breeze played. Its color seemed to warn of the indomitable, ardent nature of its owner. The length of the hair reached just above the waist. Slightly closed blue eyes in which anger and obvious interest could be read. Quite a strange combination. And these unusual stripes on the cheeks, however, as well as the eyes. The face, previously clearly visible with an even tan, was now painfully pale. The same black, incomprehensible bandage on the forehead. A yellow blouse with a zipper, which is 2 sizes larger than her own. Long black pants to the knee. And of course, black typical shinobi shoes. Uzumaki Naruto. The same as everyone else, but unlike anyone else. Standing already at Uzumaki's house, she finally said, "Uchiha, don't even hope, I won't let you into the house." The boy looked at her uncomprehendingly, and then looked around. It was as if he had just woken up, came out of a dream and didn't understand everything that was happening to him. "What's wrong with you, really? Are you sick by any chance?" She reached out to Sasuke's head to determine his temperature. But he deftly dodged and went back, only snorting at the end. The girl shrugged her shoulders and headed inside her apartment. Today she had a lot to think about. And tomorrow the Hokage would find out about her failure and would be unpleasantly upset, because he believed in her until the very end. "I promise." Early morning. The sky was brightening, with silhouettes of trees appearing against it. A cool breeze was gently blowing away the fog. The edge of the sun that had appeared began to brighten the mighty mountains and tall trees. "All I have to do is climb to the top of the cliff and pour out this liquid." The girl's rather cheerful voice sounded, pushing her to action. The red-haired Jinchuriki stood at the stairs leading to the famous monument with the Hokage's faces carved on it, holding a pair of cans of paint in her hands. The old man himself showed her this way, and the ANBU watching over her followed his example. Only he led her to a certain person, the person of the 4th Hokage, to which she asked a question. "Why here?" The young shinobi laughed that he liked him more than the others and immediately added, "But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the merits of the other village leaders. On the contrary, I respect and even admire their strength and wisdom. To tell the truth, even the blue-eyed one liked the 4th one, and what's more, she admired him as well. After all, not everyone can sacrifice themselves for others, complete strangers to them. And the post and title of Hokage itself does not say anything here. Only his name says. Minato Namikaze is a truly great man who saved the village from the nine-tailed demon fox, the price for which was his own life." Having reached the place designated by her, the girl began to count step by step where and what face was carved. It is not surprising that she was guided only by memory and counting. Her brain remembered this kind of information quite quickly. Having stopped, the blue-eyed girl said, "Let the fun begin, Databeo." Meanwhile, in the Hokage's residence, an elderly man was sitting at a wide table smoking a pipe and sorting through stacks of papers, when suddenly there was a knock on his door and a shinobi entered the room. The old man silently rose from his seat, listening attentively. Hokage-sama, the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails is there, the one who entered said out of breath. Naruto, you say, Sarutobi said, looking out the window, examining the red-haired girl's creativity. Stop, Uzumaki! Shouted the man running after the red-haired girl. The girl ran, trying not to pay attention to the curses and any other attempts to stop her. Hey Naruto, stop! Who am I talking to? Another voice was heard. The girl running away automatically turned her head in the direction from which they were shouting. Suddenly she felt a familiar chakra ahead and, before she could stop, literally flew into this person, who turned out to be Iruka-sensei. The others who had previously pursued her were now standing nearby and loudly complaining. People on the road crowded together and watched the outcome with interest. As soon as the girl realized what was going on, she decided to hide again, because she would definitely be punished. But she was quickly caught by the collar of her clothes. Why did you do this, Naruto? The teacher asked sternly. Let go! Get your worthless little hands off me! I don't have to report! She screamed. How dare you talk to me like that? Yumino growled, giving him a hard slap. Ouch! Uzumaki began to rub the bruised area. The people crowding around began to get indignant and condemn the girl, saying that she should be severely punished for vandalism. You don't understand anything. The captured one cried out, none of you could do such a thing. But I could. I'm simply inimitable, she said with an impudent grin. People looked at the girl with disdain. And the shinobi literally dragged the young prankster to the Hokage. Naruto, why did you do this? The gray-haired old man asked in surprise. Uzumaki, not afraid of the dirty floor, sat down cross-legged, turning away. And after a couple of minutes of silence, she exhaled and began to speak. One of them, the fourth. You know, I will surpass all the Hokage including you, and finally make everyone appreciate my strength. I will gain respect and no matter what I will protect you and my friends, just like the fourth did. Iruka stared at the girl. Still a child, he thought. This prank was just a protest, a refusal to accept reality. Maybe she will become a strong shinobi, but later, not now. Iruka, don't you have to go to the academy? Hiruzen asked. Huh. Yes, of course. The rest can be free too. And Naruto, you know, I have no doubt that you will become a strong shinobi. But you shouldn't make others suffer on this path. Even if it's unbearably hard for you. Your pain should remain only yours, the Hokage said, looking away from her. Selfish, the old man thought to himself. Yes. After everything that had happened in the morning, Uzumaki was sitting on the swing she loved so much, which was located right opposite the entrance to the academy. Now many voices of adults and their children could be heard from there. Here it is, the award ceremony. From now on, they are genin and will have to carry out various tasks from the Hokage. Do we miss you? A voice was heard right next to the red-haired girl's ear, causing her to flinch. She didn't notice the person who appeared next to her. Mizuki-sensei? Hello, Naruto. I heard what you did today. And I don't blame you in any way. It was even pretty funny. But that's not why I came here. I just wanted to tell you not to be angry at Iruka-sensei for his rudeness. He's worried about you. How would you know? She snorted. We've been friends for a long time and I can tell you a lot of interesting things about him, said the shinobi, after which there was a minute of silence. Oh. I'm not mad. It's okay, I'll pass this damn exam next time, Databeo. The Jinchuriki answered cheerfully, but there was still a drop of frustration and annoyance in her voice. You know, I can help you, the ash-haired man said with a clear smirk on his face, to which Naruto looked at him suspiciously. Seriously? This isn't a joke? And how? How will you help? The girl literally showered me with questions. True, I shouldn't talk about this. If anyone finds out then, said the sensei. No, you can count on me, no one will find out. She hastened to assure her interlocutor. For this I will need your help. Commentary on Part 8. Well, something like that. Part 9 Part Do you have a dream? Someone will say. What a stupid question, everyone has one. But there will also be those who never acquired one. Or maybe it was there, but was forgotten with age. And if so, what kind of dream is it? And yet, if you have any dream, what are you willing to do to make it come true? Or what is your dream capable of and how can it change you? It's amazing, the young man said barely audibly. It's simply amazing. This is serious. Find Naruto immediately. The elderly man in white robes was quite shocked by the news. Eat. Sarutobi, you understand that I can't close my eyes to this, said the one whose mouth was a predatory grin. Danzo. I'm sure the situation will be resolved much better than you think. On the outskirts of the village stood an old temple that had been empty for a long time. The young ninja decided to stop when he noticed a girl. Naruto? He wanted to shout at her, but he was stopped by the appearance of two familiar shinobi and he decided to remain unnoticed. Naruto! An end to your pranks, the shinobi blurted out angrily. In front of him stood a panting girl with a large scroll on her back. Oh, Iruka-sensei. You found me. And there, 9, the red-haired girl said, looking somewhere into the gloomy grove. At that very second, kunai flew from behind towards those standing. With a quiet whistle, the young shinobi noticed them too late, and only managed to cover the red-haired girl with his body. The teacher's muffled groans seemed to echo in Naruto's head. A wave of fire passed through the little Uzumaki's body. It's amazing and sad. Pathetic Iruka, just look at this naive child who was able to steal the village's secret scroll without being noticed. From the very beginning. No one valued you and it will always be like that. Naruto, give me the scroll and I will help you become strong so that everyone respects you. Mizuki-sensei. Mizuki! So it's you. Don't listen to him, Naruto, he's just using you for his own purposes, don't give him the scroll. Stop scaring her, Iruka. Do you really not want Naruto to get the scroll? You are too cruel to someone who did this with good intentions. What are you saying? What are you talking about? He's lying, Naruto. That scroll you're holding contains forbidden jutsu that will put the entire village at risk. Lying? I'll tell you now who's really lying here. You've lived your whole life in deception according to an 11-year-old law. Shut up. Not knowing what else to do, Yumino, not paying attention to the aching wounds, grabbed the blue-eyed girl and covered her ears with his hands. Silence, just a couple of words like a bolt from the blue. You are the nine-tailed fox. The little legs buckled in unconsciously. Not understanding what was happening, the girl began to crawl back, but a nearby tree did not allow her to go far. Uzumaki grabbed her head and a large amount of unbridled chakra appeared around her, which those nearby could not help but notice. That's why you're not accepted in the village. Even the teacher hates you for the death of his parents. I would help you become strong so that everyone would accept and fear you. She sat there lost, not noticing everything around her, not even noticing how the teacher took another blow, and now hung over her, leaning on his trembling hands. Only a drop of warm blood brought the Jinchuriki to his senses. Iruka is sensei, why? I know what it's like. I know what you feel, loneliness and emptiness. I'm sorry, you don't deserve this. She didn't know what kind of drops were falling on her face, tears or blood. Teacher, she said helplessly, no longer able to control herself. It was childishly offensive, but the emptiness filling the heart was faster than understanding and awareness of everything that was happening. Mizuki began to come closer, still continuing to say other nasty things about how vile everyone is. Don't touch him again, the red-haired girl interrupted. What? Don't touch Iruka-sensei, Uzumaki said louder. Her chest was burning, and her body was shaking, but nothing more. Everything fell into place. Otherwise what? What can a pathetic little fox do to me? If you touch him with even one more finger, you'll be finished. What big words. You are definitely not a person and not even a fox that everyone is so afraid of, but just a blind kitten that can only meow loudly. The next second, Uzumaki rushed at Mizuki, but he lazily began to use shurikens and was immediately surprised at how deftly the girl dodged while accelerating. Moving more and more confidently towards his former teacher, not feeling fear, only determination and anger, which helped him move faster and deftly avoid blows. Naruto? What are you doing? Yumino couldn't believe that the little girl didn't look weak now, but looked like a well-trained ninja. The shinobi dodged the not quite precise blows. There were more and more of them, not giving him the opportunity to move to the scroll that was near Irika. Feeling a push in the area of the hip, he automatically grabbed the place where he no longer found his pouch with the remaining kunai in it. Realizing that this was all the Jinchuriki wanted, he laughed. Really, all this time? Ahaha. But is a ninja only dangerous with a weapon in his hands? The girl stood calmly. Already holding 2 kunai in her hands, she stood and looked at her enemy with wide-open eyes. What the? Mizuki squinted, peering into Naruto's eyes, blue shimmering into silver. But what were those red reflections, like sparks that appeared and immediately went out? The shinobi felt uneasy at the thought of what it could be. Deciding not to delay the matter, he made a seal. Kagebunshin no Jutsu. Having created a clone that went to the wounded Irika in order to take the secret scroll, he himself continued to look at Uzumaki and noticed how she began to smile. And then fold the same seal as the ash-haired one. Kagebunshin no Jutsu. Her clone appeared near the girl. Everyone was confused. Even Naruto herself could not believe what she had just done, but deciding not to stop at one clone, she tried to create new ones again and again. Kagebunshin no Jutsu. Kagebunshin no Jutsu. Kagebunshin no Jutsu. Having created 5 clones, she decided not to waste time any longer and headed towards her enemy, when 2 clones opposite moved towards the teacher. Irika finally gathered some strength and, throwing the scroll over his back, headed towards the clone created by Mizuki. Naruto's clone stopped watching the teacher. They had a completely different speed. As the enemy clone immediately disappeared, and the teacher was again exhausted, they ran up to him. Naruto, you have to take the scroll and run to the village. There are a lot of shinobi looking for you. Tell them what happened. I'll distract you, Mizuki, but they just kept silent and suddenly disappeared. Turning around, Naruto raised his hand with a kunai, aiming at the forearm, but the shinobi caught it and threw it away. The clones grabbed him by the arms from behind, and the real host of the fox rushed at the ash-haired man again, jumping up in order to strike him in the face. But even then Mizuki only leaned back after kicking the girl in the stomach. The blow was not weak and the clones disappeared. It's annoying. The red-haired girl growled, getting up, but still holding her hand to the bruised place. She felt the familiar chakra approaching them. Deciding to try again, she straightened up, making a seal. More and more red reflections appeared in her eyes. Kagebunshin, but Jutsu. What? How so? Mizuki was confused. Is that really possible? Having learned the technique just a couple of minutes ago, and now you can master it perfectly. Yumino couldn't believe what he saw. There were a couple dozen Naruto clones in front of him. Gathering her strength, Uzumaki decided to make a final attack. Alone against all her clones, he would definitely have a hard time. Well, if you're not coming to me, then I'm coming to you. Databao. The blue-eyed girl shouted and rushed towards Mizuki, raising her hand, which held a kunai. Mizuki was wary. As if she felt no pain and knew no fear, the girl was running towards him like many of her clones, but only one made him tense up. The one with the crazy look, the same red gleams, as if the flame inside her was visible through her eyes. It only took a couple of seconds of confusion, and he was no longer able to dodge the blows of the girl in time, who did not spare the offender of her sensei. The young shinobi who had been watching everything was now standing in front of the red-haired girl who was silently hanging over the moaning Mizuki. Then, as if not noticing him, she headed towards her teacher. Sorry, I got a little carried away. He continued to look at the young Uzumaki, who was pretty battered, but quite cheerful. At that moment, in front of him, she finally became a shinobi, as her new headband indicated. The protector was worn in places and had small scratches, but it was a gift from her teacher, who finally believed in her and recognized her. Perhaps this moment will remain in their memory. But he will not forget this day, which gave rise to many thoughts. Feeling disenfranchised from being there, he took Mizuki and headed to the residence with all the reports and a report on what had recently happened. This worthless brainchild is dangerous. If not now, then definitely in the future. Pathetic Sarutobi will not be able to do anything anymore. equals 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 part 10 equals 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 equals. To survive the most difficult periods in life, we need to relearn how to move forward. Not standing still is our choice. Life is constantly moving forward, and it is in our power to follow the path we have chosen without denying ourselves. In a small room sat a little girl and an elderly man. He was sorting through papers that filled his entire desk. Old man, this photo. Now other shinobi can find out about me just by looking at it. Not everything. It's something like a dossier on any shinobi that proves your identity. It will also be required when your internship begins. But not everyone has access to everything. He answered without any interest. What about the shinobi from other villages? The red-haired girl didn't let up. The man exhaled. There was a lot of work that he couldn't concentrate on anyway. Silence filled the room, and only occasionally could the creaking of a wooden chair be heard, on which a girl fidgeted while waiting for the Hokage to speak. Suddenly, a rustling sound was heard behind the door. Uzumaki noticed that behind it was a small figure of a child with a tiny chakra hearth. There. Naruto wanted to notify the Hokage that there was someone behind the door, when it suddenly swung open and a boy rushed towards them, rushing towards the head of the village. Old man! I challenge you to a fight. Now I will beat you and become the 5th Hokage. The kid ran towards the old man, holding a shuriken in his hand. He was clearly serious, but those in the room did not even move from their places. And now the boy's chosen target was within reach, when his own long scarf, which was constantly dangling at his feet, became the cause of his fall. At that very moment, another person appeared in the room. Naruto noticed that he had a large amount of chakra, a little more than Irika-sensei. I hope you're not hurt, esteemed grandson? An excited voice interrupted the boy's groans. The shinobi glanced around the room, noticing the Hokage, and then Uzumaki, who was surprised by everything that was happening there. This is... The man fell silent, recognizing in the girl the unbearable and blind carrier of the fox. The boy immediately stood up and puffed, and headed towards Naruto. Having come almost right up to her, he extended his hand, pointing his finger at her. It was you who tripped me. I fell because of you. He angrily accused the red-haired girl. You yourself stumbled. There is no point in blaming everyone and anyone. Naruto instantly flared up with rage and screamed, pushing the boy away from her. Now get your hands off the honorable grandson, the honorable 3rd Hokage. The shinobi immediately said. Well, are you scared that my grandfather is the 3rd Hokage? The girl was shocked. She never knew about the old man's family, much less about his grandson. He continued to sit silently at the table, looking at everything that was happening. The boy continued to accuse and laugh at the blue-eyed girl's inaction, when she still did not understand what was going on, when Uzumaki grabbed the restless one by the scarf tied around his small neck. What's the matter? Do you want to hit me? Or are you scared of my grandfather? At these words, Uzumaki was completely out of her mind. I don't care who your grandma is. The red-haired girl hit the boy hard, who immediately fell to the floor. She was angry. Why didn't the old man talk about his family? He should have. She considered him her family, and he knew it too. So why? With the resentment that was red on Uzumaki's face, she left the room. And after her, the noisy boy, who was amazed by the hot-tempered and fearless red-haired girl. The shinobi did not immediately notice his absence, lecturing every now and then, drawing only the Hokage's attention to himself. He only shook his head, wondering. And when did he become like this? Stop following me! Uzumaki couldn't help but say. She could easily sense the presence of the little pest. You are really good. Eh? You were able to notice me when I was so cleverly disguised. Now I am your student, and you are my teacher, the boy confidently declared. Are you kidding? I can't become your teacher. Why? I need another teacher so that I can defeat my grandfather and become the next Hokage. I'm sick of this. Everyone sees me as the honorable grandson of the 3rd Hokage. The boy said, almost screaming, all emotional. By the way, what's your name? Konohamaru. It's the old name of the village. It's easy to remember, but no one calls me by my name. Pondering Konohamaru's story, Uzumaki continued on her way in silence. Hey, are you listening? That's why I absolutely must defeat my grandfather and become Hokage. Once I become him, I will finally be recognized as Konohamaru. The blue-eyed girl stopped abruptly, and the noisy boy crashed into her back and fell to the ground. Hokage this, Hokage that. It's not that simple, Konohamaru. Naruto began slowly. What? Do you even know what it takes to become one? What then? First you need to defeat me, Naruto Uzumaki, she said with a dazzling smile. The boy stared at the girl in silence. Who is she to say such a thing? Was spinning in his head. He watched as Uzumaki slowly leaned towards him and offered her hand to help him stand up. The small girl's hand was covered in abrasions, and the cauldrons on it were slightly swollen. Grabbing the seemingly painful and fragile little hand, he realized that it was only like that in appearance. She looked at him. Simple, smiling sincerely, closing her eyes. The sun was mercilessly hot. The streets were half empty. A light cool breeze blew, filled with the loud chirping of cicadas. And yes, there is no shortcut to the Hokage title. Be prepared for any difficulties. Naruto threw in what was said as a final thought. Konohamaru silently watched as his new acquaintance, completely different from all those he had met before, walked away. Hey Naruto! Naruto! The boy shouted with all his might, to which the blue-eyed girl turned around, already in the distance. Remember, I will definitely fight you. Uzumaki smiled again, but this smile was much wider than before. Waving, she continued her way to the academy. It was still very early, but today all those who passed the exam would be gathered together, and the distribution would begin. And tomorrow the internship would begin, interesting tasks, meeting strong opponents and exciting fights with them. What? Why is Naruto on the same team as Sasuke? Yes. Why this loser with my Sasuke-kun? It has to be me. No, me. Yumino, announcing the list of the new teams, which had 3 students each, was now awkwardly scratching the back of his head, trying to calm everyone down. The office was in chaos, caused by the girls, conquered by the cold-blooded Uchiha. They all complained indignantly, standing near Naruto's desk. But they were even more irritated by the fact that Sasuke himself was sitting calmly with an inscrutable look next to the red-haired girl, which now angered Uzumaki herself. What's gotten into him? To do whatever he wants, thought the blue-eyed girl. The shouts turned into rough pushes and insults, and the children completely forgot about the presence of their sensei. I'm tired of it, Naruto yelled, jumping up abruptly. Everything went quiet, but not for long. A quiet and angry hiss made the red-haired girl pay attention to the girl standing next to her, who suddenly pushed her sharply. Not expecting this and unable to resist, Uzumaki began to fall on the Uchiha sitting next to her. Squeezing her eyes shut and all cringing, expecting the impact from the fall, she suddenly stopped in midair. Now there was silence in the office. The young Jinchuriki did not understand what had happened. Feeling warm breath on her cheek, she slowly opened her eyes and immediately her body began to rise on its own, and then someone grabbed her hand and pulled her towards him. How are you? Shikamaru? Is this a Nara clan technique? Yes, the technique of shadow imitation. Now are you too? Sakura spoke ominously, but was stopped. Everyone! Quickly to your places. Iruka was furious. I repeat, team number 7 Uchiha Sasuke, Uzumaki Naruto, and for the first time in several generations, a member of the famous Nara clan Nara Shikamaru. Uchiha sat as if in a daze. What just happened? Why were his hands shaking and his body so tense? What is this? Not restraint? Anger? Just now her face was so close to his own. He glanced at his noisy neighbors and now his team members. Shikamaru, you're cool. Catch me in the air. It's great that we're on the same team. Uzumaki rattled, sitting closer to Uchiha, giving her friend room to sit. Yes, be quiet. But as always, you attract all sorts of trouble. It's for the best that you need supervision. Saying this, Shikamaru turned his attention to Sasuke, who was also looking at him. So the three continued to sit and wait for their mentor. Uzumaki was fidgeting and pushing, which caused discomfort to those who were on either side of the girl. With the departure of the last team, Shikamaru sat a little further away, while Uchiha silently moved to a place closer to the exit. It had been a while since the classroom had emptied, but the boys were still waiting for their new sensei. Even the restless Uzumaki was exhausted from waiting. That's it. Now I'll find him myself and bring him here. The girl headed for the exit, but then stopped and turned her face to the window. Yo, guys! The ash-haired man appeared, dressed in the standard shinobi outfit, consisting of a green chunin vest, a blue suit, sandals, and gloves with shields. His mask covered his face, and an eye patch covered his left eye. Ninja-san? In the residence. Hokage-sama, Shikaku, explain to us why you did this? After all, for many years in a row the composition of the teams did not change and Nara was always with Akimichi and Yamanaka. I am not even talking about all the benefits of this composition, but all this was also done to strengthen the unity between the three clans. The shinobi were shocked by what was happening. I think it would have been impossible to avoid it. And I was forced to do exactly that after discussing it with Shikaku in advance. But what does all this mean? Precautionary measures. So, let's get acquainted first. Tell me who you are and what you love. Do you have a dream? My name is Kakashi Hataki, Jonin, your new mentor. Now you? Nara Shikamaru, Genin. I like shogi, lying around and doing nothing. My dream is to start a family and live a normal, calm life. Uchiha Sasuke, Genin. There is nothing I like, but there is much I don't like. My goal is to kill one person. The red-haired girl felt strange around Sasuke. Well, and you? Said the ash-haired man, drawing Uzumaki's attention to himself. Uzumaki Naruto, Genin. I like many things, but I don't like liars and traitors. She said with disdain, my dream is to become an outstanding Hokage who will surpass all shinobi. The blue-eyed girl literally screamed, pointing her finger at their mentor. The boys were surprised by her antics, and Hataki only sighed tiredly. This was only the beginning of their battle, which the young Jinchuriki had announced. They say that if a person loses one of his senses, then another sense improves. Be it hearing, smell, sight, or touch. People consider such a person incapable of living a full life, so many begin, so to speak, to coddle him. Of course, there are still those who do not value such a person at all and consider it funny to humiliate him. After all, for them, he is an outcast. Not like everyone else. Previously, such people were called God's people. Now, disabled. But no one thought that they do not need pity, only support, faith, and understanding. Sometimes these inferior people would like to scream, bang their fist on the door frame, and loudly declare that they are able to do everything themselves. Some will perceive this protest as fleeting anger and continue to treat it the same way. And he withdraws into himself, again and again. Many despair, giving up on everything, but the strongest does not stop going towards his goal. He tries to prove to the whole world that he is not a boarder. Not an outborn. It was pouring rain. Its drops were knocking on the windows, the wind was howling, seeping through the small cracks. The weather seemed to be sad along with the red-haired little girl. She was sitting on the windowsill of her own window, trying not to pay attention to the cold air in the house. It was a small apartment in an old dormitory where a girl named Uzumaki Naruto lived, completely alone. She was an orphan, and the girl was completely blind. She had no friends, she did not communicate with anyone, except for some ANBU members and the Hokage himself, who looked after her. People did not like her because of the fox demon sealed in her, who destroyed Konoha 5 years ago and killed many people, including 2 special ones who gave life to the village and Naruto's own daughter. But they had no idea what kind of life they gave to their child. A couple of minutes later the rain began to subside, after which a small ray of sunshine broke through the thick and dark clouds and hit the girl's face. Feeling the warmth on her cheek, the girl jumped up abruptly and ran to the exit door. The bright sun suddenly appeared in the sky, dispelling the melancholy, and with its warm rays warmed the chilled and wet earth and the frozen souls of the people. The girl's heart beat joyfully inside. Awkwardly and a little hesitantly, the girl ran down the stairs. She ran completely barefoot in a bright green dress. On the penultimate step, she stumbled and fell, breaking her knee. A man in an ANB uniform immediately appeared next to her, who, without saying a word, decided to pick her up. But Naruto hit his hand with her palm and shouted, "I'll do it myself!" After which she stood up on her feet and hesitantly took the first step, after which she smiled again and rushed along the path she had studied for so long. A beautiful, small green meadow, surrounded by only trees and bushes. It was her only place, where she could feel like a normal child like everyone else, where there were no strange looks. The feeling when they look at you with some malice, just burn you with their looks. No one even guesses that she feels all these looks, she just sees them differently, not like everyone else. The grass was still wet from the recent rain. Naruto squatted down and began to run her small hands through the wet grass. They froze in one position for a second and slowly began to clench into fists. "Old man!" the red-haired girl cried joyfully. And she ran to the old man who was dressed in white. His name was Hiruzen Sarutobi. He knows where to look for her. This is her favorite place. Unfortunately, they see each other very rarely. After all, the position of Hokage obliges. He squatted down to make it easier for her to hug him. "How did you know it was me, Naruto?" the man asked, moving away from the girl. "I don't know, I just felt it," she answered thoughtfully. "Lately I've become more aware of the people around me." Interesting. If it continues like this, I think we can send you to the academy, if you want, of course. You can become a medic or... To the academy? You're not kidding? Is it possible? Naruto asked, not believing her ears. But everyone says that I don't belong there. I think you can handle it. But it's too early. First, I'll show you one technique that will be useful, said the Hokage and sat down on the grass, meditation. The girl sat down next to the old man and listened to him attentively.